You're always on the ball, aren't you, Joe?
Always.
No, Michael, half the time.
All right. I think it's nearly time to kick off. We've still got a few people trickling in. But in the matter of doing it all on time and getting you guys out to your night, let's kick off. So I am going to introduce the wonderful Christine Crosby, who's part of the community mobilization team. And she is going to introduce herself and a bit of the work she does. So over to you, Christine. If she's online. Let's have a little look-see. It looks like she still might be coming through. I think whilst we wait for Christine, I'm going to hand over to Joe, who's all about planning, emergency planning. He's our little guru in emergency planning. So over to you, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Firstly, so great to see so many people online again and hearing from people all across the state. Yeah, thanks again for joining. Shannon, do you mind just presenting? I've got a few slides I'm going to pop up tonight. If you mind getting that up. So I work in the state office team. My name's Josiah Park from Central Victoria. I work alongside lots of our Red Cross people across the state who represent Red Cross in the planning space. This is sort of a topic we haven't talked a lot about much in the welcome session so far, but it's very relevant information and it's some of the most critical work we do in Red Cross. So just going to go on it tonight. Shannon, pull me up when I start to waffle and I use my time up, but we'll kick off. So we've got a lot.
Sorry, Joe, to interrupt. It's Abby here. I just noticed that you haven't done one of your lovely acknowledgements before we kick off the session.
Yeah, so absolutely, Abby, and really good pick up. Sorry for that. Yes, I'd like to acknowledge I'm in Central Victoria. I'm on the lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, emerging and future leaders, and just acknowledge that this was and always will be their land. We're supporting a lot of different people out in the community at the moment, and just like to extend that welcome to anybody online tonight or listening in on the recording later. Thanks, Abby. And yeah, absolutely, really important part of what we do. And thank you for reminding me, totally. So we've got a lot of people online new to the organisation. We've also got some people really experienced in planning who will be listening in and managing the chat function. So I encourage anybody who's got questions as we go, just pop in that chat function and I'm sure we'll be able to help you out in the next little bit. So jump in there. We'll jump to the next slide, Shannon, thanks. So we spoke about the 9 core capabilities in Red Cross Emergency Services in session 1. So that one there, planning, is one of our 9 core capabilities and something relevant to before, during and after emergencies. So it's really critical work. A lot of the work is focused before emergency phase, but it's certainly relevant all the way through the spectrum of emergencies. So there it is, planning at a local or municipal, a regional and a state level. And we have Red Cross people at all those levels across the state. We'll jump to the next one, Shannon. I'm just seeing a chat there from Kathy. My video might be a little bit sketchy, so I'm going to turn that off and hopefully the sound's still fine. So a bit of the why. Now, I'm not going to jump into great detail here tonight. More information will come about this in future sessions for those people working in planning roles. But the why is a lot around legislation. So Red Cross, us in Red Cross have a legislative responsibility in the state of Victoria. We're a core member and one of the lead agencies. And that there is a list of the other agencies, our partner agencies, also who have a legislative responsibility. So as you can see there, quite an exclusive list. And I think we should find this really empowering, but also we need to continually acknowledge the great responsibility that comes with that. So Red Cross along there with DHHS, the SES, Ambulance Victoria, Victoria Police, the councils across the state, and CFA, the Metropolitan Fire Brigade and Fire Rescue Victoria also. So really, really unique group. And I think this speaks a lot to the power of the Red Cross brand. And that's something that I think Kate Siebert, our state manager, spoke a lot about in session 1. I think it's a real sort of feather in the cap to the integrity and the respect Red Cross has as an organisation. We'll just jump along again, Shannon. I'm seeing the sound might not be great. Is that, how's it going there? Is it?
It is a little bit patchy, Joe, but it's manageable. It's all right to hear.
Yeah, I apologise for that. I'll try and speak up. I'm in country Victoria, so it can be a little sketchy where I am, but we'll plough along anyway. So we've just got here a divisional map. Now, we don't have to get our heads right around this at the moment, but I think it's really interesting for people new to the organisation to see how we set up. So we've got 8 regions across the state, and then we've got 79 councils within those 8 regions. So Red Cross has a legislative responsibility and is super absolutely entitled to be at the table for each of the 79 councils. Now, just to go into a little bit more detail, and I won't sort of go into a lot of detail tonight, but in those 79 councils, we have 79 MEMCs, and they are the Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committees, and Red Cross is represented on all of those. And then in turn, each of those 79 MEMCs produces a MEMP, a Municipal Emergency Management Plan. So that just, I think, just breaks it down a little bit for everyone to understand. And again, this is just, I think, highlights the scope and the breadth of this work across the state. We'll keep going, Shannon. So I've just spoken there about the MEMCs and the MEMPs. That essentially equates to quarterly meetings in each of those MEMCs. So we've got people who have just joined the organisation as new divisional operations officers and community partnerships officers. So you, especially listening in tonight, will be getting a lot more detail about this shortly. And I'd also just like to highlight too that no matter what position you have joined Red Cross in, whether you're in the IMT, whether you're in the VEEC, a response or proactive volunteer, this information is really valuable, and I think it's really important that we all have an understanding of this planning work that goes on in the background. Just on the bottom there, it's just one sentence, but well-established relationships with our partner agencies in each LGA in Victoria. Now that's what essentially all this work is about. It's about building relationships and contributing to emergency management plans. So that in turn then means during emergencies, we have really great relationships and really good arrangements with other organisations. And that's contributed to so much. It's contributing to so much now during COVID. It's also contributing so much to what's happened during the bushfire emergency. And that is really a big thank you to all the people who have contributed and worked in the planning space of Red Cross over many meetings, over many working groups, subcommittees over such a long amount of time. I see a few questions on acronyms, and the acronyms in emergency management planning is is one of the perils of it. But LGA, I think, was asked there. That's a local government area, and I think we've been through here what the MEMCs and the MEPs are. So they're probably the main that people should get to know. We'll skip along again, Shannon. Now I'll wrap up shortly, but that's a very general and basic introduction to what we do in EM planning. The takeaways here, I think, for everyone to take are that this work is operating in the background. It's steady work. It's work that anybody in Red Cross can get involved in. So if you're not already in one of these roles and you're interested in it, discuss your division's MEMC set up with your divisional leader, talk to your divisional leader about the work and what's happening in that space. And a step further, if you're still interested, get to know your MEMP. So a lot of people are not always aware that there is a MEMP for each municipality in Victoria, and it's generally readily available online via a Google search. Furthermore, if you can't get it there, you can always speak to the divisional leader and they'll be able to give you a copy. But it's really good to have a read of that MEMP if you're interested, because it'll break down into a lot of detail what's happening and what all the local arrangements are for emergencies in your part of the world. There's also a community partnerships officer manual, which those listening in tonight, stepping into these roles, will get a copy of shortly. And that's obviously freely available to anyone else interested as well. There's also some Zoom masterclass sessions that are coming up, so stay tuned for those details. And Shannon, yeah, jump to that next slide. I'll just wrap up by saying that we've spoken about this in previous sessions, but some resources and support for you all. There's a 1-800 number that I hope everyone knows by now, but if not, write that down, put it in your phone. Reach out to your divisional operations officer, as I've said. They're your number one point of call, and they'll be able to really help about understanding what's happening in planning and get you involved if you do want to get involved. And there's also an email address there, which is managed by a number of divisional leaders and myself. So send through an email there if those two options above aren't working for you. And just some other information coming up. I suppose talked about the masterclass sessions. They will be recorded and shared with anybody who's missed or later wants to get involved in this kind of work. And the last thing I'll just highlight there is an EM learning platform, which again will go into more detail in future sessions. So that again, I don't want to go over time. We need to get to Christine. I hope she's jumped on now. But EM planning work, super important work. I'm very interested in it. We have a lot of people across the state doing really good work in this space. And yeah, feel free to reach out if you want to get involved. Now, I haven't seen all the questions, Shannon. They've been popping up as I was going, but I think Kathy Meikle's online. Kathy Meikle does a lot of work in EM planning with Red Cross Emergency Services. I'm sure she's been answering some questions. And if there was any there, Shannon, that you caught that are super pertinent, I can touch on those if you like.
I'm just looking through now. Kathy's done a pretty good job. I was busy admitting people into the room, but any questions also that haven't been answered, we'll definitely look back through the chat and get back to you guys in our correspondence. So don't worry, we will answer all your questions.
Yeah, thanks. I apologise for the sound. It's just one of those things down here. We can't always get it where I am, but yeah, we've hope some of that's come through, and I'll watch the chat as we go on as well. So thanks.
Awesome. Cheers, Joe. That was a great insight into planning. Christine is on the line now. So I'm going to swing over to you, Christine, to talk about how Red Cross really succeeds by motivating other people. Christine's on the community mobilization team, which says a lot in the name itself. So getting the community mobilized to really help and prep for these emergencies. So over to you, Christine.
Well, hi everyone. I'm sorry, I'm like a bit of a family issue sort of going on, but I am here. So working from home disaster. So thanks for having me at your welcome festival. I'm just sort of going to flick through and see if I can see some happy faces. So there we go. But yes, as was told you, my name is Christine Crosby. I have the magnificent job of heading up the community mobilisations team, and some of you may or may not, and you may hear in the future, if you're new, it might be referred to as the volunteer hub. So within the volunteer hub, we do look after a lot of volunteer processes and systems and workforce, and have our own sort of volunteer workforce, and we have our own volunteers to help out with some things. We also do a lot of member engagement, and we look after community engagement or a range of strategic community engagement activities around Victoria. So but basically our remit in our team is to support more people and communities to do the humanitarian action that they want to take. So many of you want to do that in a variety of ways, and admittedly, I think you've got the emergency services team. They are the experts actually of mobilising communities around emergencies. So I'll sort of just talk a little bit more about sort of a little bit of inspiration around Red Cross and what you've joined in at the moment. But yeah, so I did sort of reference there's a lot of different ways that people want to do some things. There's formal volunteer roles, and so you sign up for a volunteer role and it's got a position description or a volunteer role description, as we call it, or a VRD. So there's a nice acronym. It sounds a bit like a disease, but that's all right. But we do all that so you know what you're going to do, and that's what people want to see. They want to know where they're going to be. They want to know what they're going to do and what impact they're going to make. So we do a lot of that as well. But the one thing I suppose that we are sort of stepping a bit more into, and but our members and a lot of communities have been doing this already, but we do a lot of support a lot of our self-mobilising voluntary activities in the community. And so what do we mean by self-mobilising? This is communities identifying the issues that their local issues, and then they'll identify the response that they want to take. But sometimes communities or people or individuals, they want to take that action, but they may want a little bit more support to be able to do it. So for instance, you've decided to be a volunteer, but you sort of want the structures around to be able to do it. So sometimes we support communities to be able to do it. We also have a magnificent member base, and they're like our first self-mobilising community. So of Red Cross, and our movement has been based on a lot of what members have done in that movement as well. So our members they're based in branches around the country, and they are based geographically, and they come together and they respond to community issues, a lot of community events and issues and things that they do. And so I'm just going to I was going to highlight them as our sort of first self-organising community, but I know we've got a lot of other examples that we do. But the self-mobilising example of how communities have mobilised, I suppose, around emergencies or identified an emergency or an issue is some of our Gippsland members from our branches down there. So they come together and collaborated with the local community and 20 local organisations to sort of be able to do some things around mental health and to be able to get prepared for disasters. So they ended up designing and consulting with each other, and we just supported and facilitated some of these discussions and all those kind of things. But they designed this event called We All Connect. What ended up happening, they got a sort of a mental health expert that has a specialty in has a specialty in sort of working with rural communities around mental health, being able to talk about things such as suicide. It was quite deep and quite hard for some of the communities to hear, but they recognised, the Gippsland community recognised that they needed to be able to do some things and have some conversations with, like farmers and community members doing it tough around the drought and various things. And in the end, they created We All Connect. They developed a really strong network from that. And what it also prepared them for was Black Summer as well. And it sort of created a greater understanding of the different local organisations that are there for mental health, who are there to support in recovery, and sort of help build a bit of a foundation of a network sort of going through Black Summer, and it continues today. So that's sort of a bit of an example. Another one that happened up in the Mallee is that we have bring some groups together or bring an activity together for some of the farmers doing it tough in emergencies on the New South Wales border with drought, and with some connection and some call outs for some material aid. Our Lake Boga Red Cross branch with the Lake Boga Lions group and also the local pub and a few other people, they managed to mobilise 17 semi-trailers of hay, do a big social event, put some dignity packs of sort of hygiene and other sort of luxury items that farmers couldn't afford and their families couldn't afford, and they dropped them all off in the community. So that's sort of self-mobilising action. So we've got the formal and we've got those self-mobilising. So what you're doing is absolutely part of sort of that emergency network, but there's that value add with other communities that want to do some things with communities, and they do things beyond emergencies, other things that I suppose COVID's been an emergency, but we did a call out to the Victorian community, our member branches, that we needed some face masks to put in our food parcels that we were sending out to vulnerable migrant households in Melbourne. We have had thousands of face masks turned up at Red Cross, and they're all in the food parcels and gone around sort of all around Metro Melbourne and helping sort of some of our vulnerable migrant communities to be able to sort of respond to some of the lockdown sort of restrictions that we have to do. So I think that was Susan McDougall doing a message there. She's probably one of them that has done all the face masks. It's just been a phenomenal effort, and it warmed your heart. And sometimes it's the simple things that just, like make a huge impact as well. But you guys are actually doing big things and going to have a big impact. But the key thing, I just wanted to let you know that while you are joining up in Australian Red Cross and working for emergency services in Victoria, you are actually joining a massive global movement. So we've it's about a movement of about 90 million people around the world. I think there's 190 Red Cross societies as well. So it's quite overwhelming when you think that when you get activated or you get up and do your volunteer role, there's probably another 1 million Red Cross volunteers around the world that are doing some things with you as well. And for Australian Red Cross, if we don't have our volunteers, we don't live in a way. Our Red Cross volunteers make up 92% of our workforce. So you also are joining a big sort of Red Cross team as well. You're the heart and soul really of our organisation. So it's quite phenomenal. But in Victoria alone, we've got about 3,700 volunteers. Around about 850 or 900 of them are part of your emergency services family now, but you have joined a bigger family of Victorian services. So thank you so much to be able to do that. But there's sort of one thing, I suppose, that we always reference as well that sort of brings that 90 million, the movement together. We do have a range of fundamental principles, and I have heard many emergency services volunteers, and I don't know if you've gone through the fundamental principles, but you'll get there. And I won't sort of spoil anything if we are talking about it, but voluntary services and humanity seem to be part of it. And I think those fundamental principles are really sometimes the heart and soul of you in the middle of emergency and when you're dealing with people in their most vulnerable as well. So it's just like it's that ability to tackle a situation with impartiality and neutrality and all those kind of things. So that is sort of something and a value and a principles that bring us all together. So it's absolutely beautiful, I think. But one thing I think that we have in common with other societies is that our volunteers are as diverse as they get, as our Victorian community gets. It's like, got differences in ages, difference in cultural background, differences in lived experience, and all of you will have different motivations while you're here today. And so that's a really important thing, that we sort of hear and know those motivations as well, to be able to motivate people to volunteer, but also to help you with your volunteering experience. And every motivation is a great motivation. So, but the main thing I think that brings people together is that you want to give back to your community. That's a key motivation. Many of you are here to join in on your emergency services activity because you want to learn and you want to support some career pathways or employment pathways, and that is brilliant. So we love to sort of see that the volunteer experience can help you sort of take off in your career and do all that. But and also you can help contribute to the work that we need you to do as well. And many are in it for social connections as well. And we hope you make some of those lifelong friends and also enjoy working with all us as well, and build up those social connections. So seize any opportunity. That's what I recommend, if there's any of those motivations there as well. And you may have some of your own, but some that are a little bit different to that. But what I also do believe that it's at the heart of every volunteer is that you want to make an impact. And how do we do that? And how do we help you do that as volunteers? Is that we do a lot of listening to the community, and we do try to sort of create those volunteer roles that have a relevance and are making an impact in the community, and they are roles that the community sort of do want as well. So we're constantly doing that. We do recommend to sort of pass any feedback onto us about your role and sort of some of those things that you think can have a more meaningful impact and can really add value to your role as well. And so our team will continually work across all of Victoria to sort of help create those volunteer roles and sort of work to create those experiences that will have an impact in communities, and to be able to sort of create those volunteer roles that communities want to do, and many of you want to volunteer in different ways. So we're sort of continually listening to that, and I'm hoping that you will sort of absolutely love and enjoy sort of the emergency services role that you've signed up for, and we hope that you end up making the impact that you want to make. But one thing I always
thanks so much, Cece. Shannon's on the next agenda item.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, but I'll just let that volunteer role have a massive impact on you too. So love your work, and sorry if I went over time.
Red Cross people do love to talk. Thank you, Cece. That was an awesome little snippet of all the information. But yes, next next on the agenda, over to Abby Merkley, who is our State Ops Coordinator and who runs our incident management team at IMT. Over to you, Abs.
Thanks, Shannon. See, this is why I was cutting you short so I could have more airtime. It was all for personal gain, all for personal gain. Great. Hello, everyone. So for those who I don't know, my name's Abby and I'm the Coordinator of Operations. My role at Red Cross is a pretty special one where every day I walk alongside my Vic ES colleagues across the state at the local, regional and state levels to do the work that we all love, which is supporting the community. And I tell you that no 2 days are ever the same in my role. Tonight, we're here to provide you with a quick overview of the incident management team. For many of you, this may be the first time that you've heard this term, but please don't worry. We've got Damien, who'll be up right after me to explain it a little bit further. And we are always happy to chat about operations. Before I hand over to the experts, I'd just like to set the scene and help paint the picture of the important work that Red Cross does during emergencies and why Red Cross representation at all of those levels, local, regional and state, are so important to our service delivery. Back in early March, I sat with our state manager, Kate, and other response agencies at the State Control Centre, solving the question, how would Red Cross provide emergency food and psychosocial relief to vulnerable Victorians impacted by COVID-19? And a plan was created. This plan was then shared with the National Red Cross team to help them paint the picture of the Red Cross COVID response Australia-wide. It was also shared with local government areas, or LGAs, as Joe has taught us, across the state. This plan then became the responsibility of the Vic ES team to enact. And when I say Vic ES team, I mean all of us. That's the divisional operations officers, the team members, the coordinators, the people at head office, and of course, our incident management team. And one of the outcomes of this work and the work from all of us across the state at all levels was the delivery of 6,500 emergency food relief packs to vulnerable Victorians over about 230 almost consecutive days. But that response took all of us. So I'm going to now hand over to our operations officer, Damien. He's going to first provide a live crush from the Villiers Street office and the Emergency Operations Centre, which is the home of the incident management team. We'll then hear briefly from each of the 6 unit leads in the incident management team, and it'll be quick. They'll explain the work that they do or the work that their unit does to support Vic ES people in large-scale emergencies. I understand that the session will be really quick and you'll hear from a lot of people, and of course you'll have questions. So I encourage you to pop them in the chat box as we go along, and we'll collate them and provide some answers in the next red alert or state office report as we go along. So with no further ado, over to Damien.
Thanks, boss. G'day, everyone. My name's Damien. You may as well call me Damo. Everyone else does here. So I'm just going to show you a little, I'm going to take you for a little tour through our office where we work, and then through the Victorian Emergency Inquiry Centre, then through the Emergency Operations Centre. And as Joe said, we work in an organisation, in an industry that it just has thousands of initialisms and acronyms. So I will try my best to explain them as I go. I'll just wear my mask while I'm outside, but then I'll take it off inside so you can see my mush. All right, so as you're coming up, I'm at 23 to 47 Villiers Street in North Melbourne. This is where we work. As you're coming up the stairs, this is what you will see. Come on, I'll take you for a walk. This would be the bit where you'd have Benny Hill music playing if it was a video, but we don't have that, I'm sorry. So come into Villiers Street and you are in reception. There's no one in the building, so I might just take this off. Come into the building. This is reception. And over my right shoulder is the hall that we will walk down to get to emergency services. So you really do need Benny Hill music or something like that to keep this little part interesting. Walk in here, and this is where the staff work for emergency services in Victoria. Like the rest of Melbourne, we are locked down. So we've been working from home for the last 6 months, which has created some challenges, but it's been really successful as well. So everybody's worked really well. Just up here is the Victorian Emergency Inquiry Centre. This is where we would stand this up when we stand up Register, Find, Reunite, which is RFR. You'll learn all about that in your training, so I won't give you all the details now. But basically, people can ring up and they can tell us where they are in case someone is looking for them. In case they can't get in contact with someone, then other people can ring up and they will inquire, and we'll be able to tell them, yes, your friend is safe and your friend is here, and this is where you can go and meet. When you come inside, it looks like this: banks of phones. Obviously, this isn't stood up when it's like this when it's for COVID. Supervisor sits over in the corner over there. The VEIC, the Victorian Emergency Inquiry Centre, is a really great part of volunteering. If you get to, some people will ring up and are quite distressed, and you get a really good opportunity to really help people, like to really make people feel better, and they really connect with their families. Just up here is the Emergency Operations Centre. This is where we set up our IMT, our Incident Management Team. Nearly 90% of all activations will be handled by the division in the division, because they're usually not terribly big. We only stand up the Incident Management Team when there's a big event like the bushfires or COVID or something like that. We run a system where we can help the divisions manage the emergency. So we can do some rostering and some planning and get other people to come in. So we sit in a certain order. Just over here is where the commander would sit. Just over here in the red is where the operations folks will sit. Opposite the commander, so the commander can yell at them, is the planning folks. They sit in the snazzy yellow. And behind them, as far away from the commander as is possible, is the logistics folks. In just a couple of minutes, all my friends who work in the IMT are going to tell you a little bit about those roles. But I am going to tell you about being a commander, because that's what I do. I'm one of 4 or 5 state commanders. Basically, my job is to work out what we need to do, and then to get the most talented people in the world to help you to do it. I look after relationships with external partners. I look after the media. I look after making sure that you are safe. My most important job is to make sure that you get to work safely, you do a great job, and then you get home safely. And I promise you that is what I do. Thanks for everyone for listening. Really, thanks for sort of going along with me on this little journey. Always happy to have a chat. Those who know me, I'm always happy to answer any questions you've got. So right now, I'm going to throw it over to Mike and Jeanette, and they are going to tell you about the Victorian Emergency Inquiry Centre.
Thanks, Damo. How you going, everyone? I'm Jeanette. Damo's already covered a little bit about the VEIC, and that's another acronym for all of you. So it's the Victorian Emergency Inquiry Centre. Unlike the other units of the IMT, the VEIC is not a mandatory function of the IMT, so it's only stood up when the Register, Find, Reunite program is requested, and that's usually a request made by Victoria Police, and it's usually during a large-scale activation. So as Damo explained, the purpose of RFR is to link people who are affected by an emergency with their loved ones. So it could be people who are directly impacted, who are registering, and they could be registering over the phone or by the website or in person at an emergency relief centre. And it's also for people who are concerned about their loved ones. So they can call in or go through the website. And the idea is that we link them up and we reunite them. So it's all a very lovely story in the end. Apart from reuniting loved ones during emergencies, the information that we collect helps to inform the emergency services during a disaster. So if people are on the move and it's a large scale emergency like bushfires or floods, if they're moving around from one relief centre to the next, that information is really helpful for the police and for the fire brigades. And that information can also feed into recovery activities, which is something that the Red Cross also gets involved in after the emergency. So that's most of it, really. I encourage you to ask any questions in the chat box. And Mike, you're more than welcome to chime in if you have any more information. A number of you I can see already have experience in the VEIC more than I do. So you'll probably know more than I about how it all goes down. But yeah, happy to answer any questions. And I'm handing over to Caitlin.
Amazing job, Jeanette. Jeanette, you've covered them all.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. So my name is Caitlin. I am the State Operations Function Lead. So distinct from Abby's role, which is a staff role, and she is the Coordinator of Operations in terms of what Red Cross is doing all year round across the state. I am the lead for operations as it exists as part of the incident management team, as Damo's just explained. So along with the other functions that you'll be hearing from shortly. Operations is essentially your first point of call. So you will be activated in the field, whether that's in your own division or you might be deployed to a different area around the state to support a different division if there is an event that's, you know, beyond the capacity of their team to respond to, or maybe it's been going for a while and their team really needs a break. So the operations team, as part of the incident management team, is there to support you, to support the communities that have been affected. So we will make sure that you have the accurate and up-to-date information that you need to be deployed, so you know what you're walking into. We will be there to troubleshoot and to answer any questions or concerns that might come up in the field if that's, you know, bigger than what you and your team leader are able to manage on shift. And if we can't manage it, we'll pass it up to Damien or one of the other commanders. And we're also there to make sure that you are well and safe and being looked after. So that includes debriefing as well as the troubleshooting. Another really important function that we help provide is to make sure that the information you're gathering from the community members that you're working with also gets fed up into our incident management, our commander, but then also into the incident controllers and the other agencies. So you will be in the field talking to people who have been affected potentially. And what you're hearing from them is incredibly valuable about what's working, what they're worried about, what other supports they might need, what their concerns are at that particular point in time. So we'll check in with you and we will capture that information, report on it and pass it up so that that can help inform the way the entire incident is responded to, not just by Red Cross, but more broadly across the sector as well. I think that's pretty much it. I'll leave it there, but as Jeanette said, if there's any questions, pop them in the chat or obviously get in touch in the future, but hopefully you'll be hearing from myself and some of our team in the future to check in when you're deployed into, you know, a larger scale event. Oh, and I'm throwing to Matt from logistics.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. So I'm Matt, and now we'll jump into the most exciting function, which is logistics, of course. So really, our place in the IMT is a support function. We exist purely to provide all the support and equipment and resourcing for all of yourselves and our people in the field to actually do the job that they need to be doing. Logistics is a very wide-ranging unit, so we will cover everything from rostering assistance and being able to deploy people to the field, travel, transport, accommodation, ensuring that you are fed, and importantly, ensuring that you are actually reimbursed if there are any expenses that you have incurred.
Hey, sorry, Matt, to just jump in. We're just having a few comments in the chat about the sound quality. Is it possible for you to just talk up a bit?
Might just try talking a little closer. Sorry, that means my face will get bigger.
Try headphones.
Yeah, that's not a bad shout. If you've got some headphones around potentially, Matt, just to try that.
Okay, any better?
Yeah, it's a little bit clearer.
Okay. Sorry, so just quickly to finish that off, because that meant we lost a little bit of time. But you know, cutting to the chase, as I was saying, our primary function is really behind the scenes, ensuring that we provide all the resourcing, tools and equipment that you need to do your job. Ensuring you get where you need to go to the right place with the equipment you need, that you have uniforms, that we can transport you there, accommodate you, food and water. We will support with arrangements around helping to connect with local food suppliers, attempting to reduce the impact on yourselves when you're deployed and having to spend your own money. That is always a last resort, attempting to put arrangements in place that you don't have to use any of your own money, but as well as looking after those arrangements to reimburse you if that should occur. We will connect up with all of those suppliers throughout the activation, as well as connecting with our agency partners logistics units. For instance, back in the start of the year in the fires, we did a lot of work with the State Control Centre logistics unit around deploying people all over the state on pretty much every mode of transport you can think of. So we are really the behind the scenes elements of the activation, and in an ideal world, not knowing we exist means we've done a good job. Again, supporting any comments into the chat. Otherwise, we will now have a chat about safety. Over to Xavier.
Thanks for that, Matt. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yeah, great. So my name's Xavier Brower. Sorry about the hair. I've booked into the hairdresser. It's been a few months. So I work with Wayne Vanderpoel, and we've put together a safety and wellbeing team. So it's great to see quite a lot of you on this call, which is great. So it's a team of around 30 volunteers. So a lot of these safety people are safety professionals who have got a lot of experience in the industry. So we're really looking forward to having them on the team. And in the wellbeing space, there's a number of professional counsellors and psychologists and other people with mental health sort of first aid backgrounds. So that's really great. So we'll be able to guarantee now for the first time that we have a safety and wellbeing person on every shift in the IMT, which means that we can be very proactive in undertaking a whole bunch of processes to make sure that what you're doing out there in the field is safe from a physical and a mental perspective. And we can also be there if you have any issues yourself. So you'll be able to call us in the IMT directly, or go through your team lead perhaps sometimes. If you have any safety concerns, any incidents, near misses. We do want to hear about near misses now. That's very important that we start hearing about what's happening out in the field, as well as any sort of well-being. It can get very tough out there. Sometimes you can get fatigued, you can get a bit burnt out. So we obviously want to hear about that as well. Some of the services that you'll see on offer include things like the Australian Psychological Society. They provide volunteers, professional psychologists in the IMT, but also out in the field. So you might bump into one of them, very friendly people. We also have the independent wellbeing checks, often performed by our fellow volunteers down in Tasmania. After a activation, you'll receive a phone call from them. A bit of a checkup phone call. It's always great to have a good chat with them. And another service we offer is the Employee Assistance Program that you can call at any time if you're having any issues, and volunteers can call that as well as staff. So I think that's pretty much it. So just be aware that there will be a safe and wellbeing person on every single shift. So we've basically got your back. And I hand over to the wonderful Susan in planning.
Thanks, Xavier. Okay. Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me and you can see me. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to read because I'm worried about missing out on things. So thanks, Xavier. Hi, everyone. My name is Susan. That's something I wouldn't forget. I'm the program lead for planning. Planning really is as it says on the box, as a colleague said this morning, as I wondered out loud what I was going to say tonight. The planning team provides strategic advice and updated community sentiment in the form of a situation report that is given to the commander on a daily basis. It is then forwarded to key stakeholders such as Emergency Management Victoria, the State Control Centre and others. This is done on a daily basis and has strict timeliness requirements, so it's important that reporting is done within a suitable time frame. Some of the information used is gathered from the work of you, the volunteers in the field. You might be attending a community briefing or taking register find reunite data or providing psychosocial support in a relief centre. All that information is gathered up by your team leader, incorporated into field reports that are sent to operations, who then forward the completed reports to planning. Data from the Victorian Emergency Inquiry Centre is also included. Planning then interprets the data and information from many other services that include sources that include field reports, media and government sources. We write a lot of reports in our team and rely on the information that you, who are in the field, gather and compile. So it's a huge group effort and we thank you. And because you've noticed that Red Cross is a place for acronyms, an emergency service is a big place for acronyms. So planning is Team Yellow. And so here's one I prepared earlier. Y is for yes, is what we say when asked to do a task. E is for excellence, which is what we aspire to offer. L is for learning, which is continuous. L is also for laughter, which can be something that gets you through a long activation, or lunch, which is an equally good L word. O is for objective with our research and open communications. W is for welcome to you all. So thank you for listening, and I hope that you've had a very brief whirlwind tour of what the incident management team actually does and how much goodness and information that you give us. We can't do our work without you, and you can't do your work without us. So it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship. So thanks for listening. I'd just like to hand you over to Lisa Keedle, who's going to be talking about after in the recovery and after emergency space. So thank you for listening. See you later.
Oh, Susan, good job. I don't know how to take up from that. I don't think I've got anything special like that. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hello, I was here last week for those of you who were here last week, and welcome to those that are catching up this week. How are you all going? There's a lot of information to download in. It's been 50 minutes of information. So well done for hanging in there. But as you know, these sessions are recorded, so you'll be able to catch up afterwards. My job is to talk about recovery and the after component. So I'm the state lead for recovery and preparedness in Victoria. And I've got two slides just to quickly take you through. The first one really is just a high level recovery component. And when we talk about recovery, there's always the planning. The planning comes before we actually activate anything in recovery. And Joe has already mentioned the municipal level planning. So as volunteers, you might be asked to participate at the local level in the recovery plan that will be a part, or can be a part of the municipal emergency management plan, but it can also be a sub-plan of the municipal emergency management plan. And some councils, will have, or some local government areas will have recovery committees. So if you get a chance to volunteer and participate in those, they are great at building relationships and making connections before you need to activate and to be sort of tasked to do recovery work. When I talk about recovery, and traditionally when we talk about recovery, the after component in emergency management, we talk about the phases of recovery. And I've put in a slide here. It's so neat and it's so tidy, but this is not how it goes at all. But essentially there's the short-term recovery, which is around the 3 to 6 months. PFA, good question. Psychological first aid. Sorry, I put an acronym in my slide. So the first 6 to 3 months is what we call short-term recovery, and it's really where affected communities and people are really just trying to get their head around what happened, what do I need, what are my immediate needs, and what we provide in terms of support to the people that have been affected by it is primarily psychological first aid, and that appears through outreach, and that can be face-to-face outreach or it can be telephone outreach. So this year we've done a mix of both. Because of COVID, it's had to do that. But that's a really important aspect of where Red Cross comes in to support and walk beside people that have been affected by recovery. And actually, it's a really lovely way to help people progress in a better state towards the long-term and the medium-term recovery. The medium-term recovery really is at the next stage, which is the 6 to 12 months. And it doesn't seem like much, but about the 6-month mark, people start to kind of really feel the effects of recovery and the impacts of whatever disaster or crisis they've actually been impacted by. So traditionally how we show up, how Red Cross shows up, is by attending and again providing psychological first aid to the anniversary events. So here in Victoria, we're about to hit the 12-month mark around Christmas and New Year time for the Victorian bushfires that occurred. So we'll be sought to kind of provide support to those anniversary events, and they can be small and they can be large gatherings. We're also, when it comes into a 12-month cycle, what we find is that those communities are actually looking for preparedness activities because they're now realising that they've got lessons that they want to kind of
learn from and actually engage with how to prepare better next time. So sometimes you'll be asked to do preparedness activities in the middle of recovery, but that totally makes sense to me when we talked before about planning for it. So that's what we try and do and support that. So programs like the Pillowcase program or the Ready Plan program are programs that we run for recovery. And then long-term recovery, we have less involvement, but essentially what we find again is that we cycle back to recovery planning and recovery committees, and we try and actually embed some of the lessons learned that has happened for those impacted communities and local government areas around how to actually make next time a little less traumatic for people in terms of their recovery. So they're the phases really quickly. The next one, as my previous slide was all very neat, this is typically what people go through during recovery. This is actually taken from the Australian Disaster Manual from Emergency Management Australia. And this is a really lovely person cycle of how we go through and how we experience recovery. Not everybody will have a touch point through every point of this particular slide, but there will be elements of that. And if I can get you to reflect on, because you're all Victorians, going through COVID this year, whether or not you can sort of recognise and acknowledge or in any way connect with any of the words on this page, then you yourself are going through a form of a recovery cycle. So this is almost, you've got a lived experience to engage in the conversations that you may have with recovery going forward. That's it for me. I just wanted to really highlight the fact that we have different roles in recovery and that you'll be asked to do different things, but just to be mindful of the communities that you'll be asked to walk beside and to support after the event. Thanks, Shannon.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. I really like that graph at the end. I definitely can relate to that a lot during the COVID time. Now I'm going to hand back to Damo. It's the Damo show tonight. And he's going to talk about something that's really ingrained in everything we do here at Red Cross, which is reconciliation. So over to you, Damo.
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, it is the Damo show today. I apologise, everyone, but this is what summer's like. You get to see me a lot. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about reconciliation, and it really is, it's the heart of everything we do, right? I woke up this morning on Bunurong land, and I spent the day on the land of the Wurundjeri mob, and it's just such a privilege and an honour to walk on land that's been constantly looked after and lived on for the last 40,000 years. It's just a true privilege, right? So in Victoria, across all the Red Cross, we believe that walking alongside Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander folks is the best way for us to make a difference, right? There's no point coming in and telling people how to live their job, how to live their lives. They've been here for 40,000 years. They know how to live their lives, but we need to be there to walk alongside and to help them and do what needs to be done so that they can, so that they get to be self-governing and, you know, they can continue to do their thing. So there's two main ways we do this. In emergency services, it's a real focus, especially during a big emergency. But during our sort of day-to-day, we have a yarning circle. So a yarning circle is a very traditional Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander thing. It's a very safe space for us to come together, particularly us white fellas to come together and talk about things that we see affecting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. We often have mob come and talk to us or talk with us, and usually it's split up with males and female group, but because of COVID, we're doing it all online, so we're doing it all together, and it's just a really great, it's just a very safe and really lovely, beautiful space. And we, and Christine Crosby and I sort of run it, since we haven't got a liaison officer anymore, but hopefully we'll get one soon. Everyone's welcome to that. It's a Skype meeting. It happens once a month on a Wednesday. I'll make sure that the Skype meeting goes in the next red alert and it goes on red so that everybody can come if they want. The other thing that we do is the Victorian RAP group, so the Victorian Reconciliation Action Plan group. Part of that, and that's a lot of staff, but there's also some volunteers, and you're more than welcome. If this sort of thing interests you, you're more than welcome, and happens about once a month. But our job, what we see, is to help teams across all the Red Cross, help them take those steps to get community involved and get mob involved and to learn and to get out there into community. The best way, the absolute best way for us to get involved is to actually go and meet people and hang out and go to events and, you know, go and volunteer and help them out. This is something we are all really extremely passionate about. If you have any questions, or you would like to join, or you'd like to help, or you've got some ideas, I'd love to hear it. So get in contact or leave a note, and we'll hopefully we'll see you at some of these events. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you, Damo. And I'll definitely swing
Shannon.
through in the email following up from this, the links to both of those different events. And I've been to the Yarning Circle, and it's just a great space to chat and connect. Yeah, so now we're going to hand over to, I'm aware of the time, we're nearly done. I'm going to hand over to Mia from the Learning Development team. She's just going to talk on the next steps in the e-learning and what to do next.
Thanks, Shannon. I just want to check that my audio is working and that everyone can hear me clearly.
Loud and clear.
Yep, all good. Awesome. So hi, everyone. Tonight, I'd just like to reiterate some of the main points for your learning pathway. So just to go over the two main systems that you'll need to be comfortable with throughout your Red Cross journey. So that is ELMO and REDS. So you'll complete your e-learnings via ELMO, the Red Cross Online Learning Gateway, and all our webinars are scheduled on our system called REDS, which is the Rostering Events Deployment System. So that was just a quick note, and so we do recommend that you familiarise yourself with those two systems over this period. Just to go back to what we need everyone to do. So as I've mentioned previously, by now I hope that all but most have sent through their working with children checks and police checks, as this is obviously a key step so we can get you access to the learning systems. So once those checks have been approved, you'll receive an email from the Learning and Development, which will include those instructions on how you can complete those e-learnings. This will also provide a training guide, which takes step by step and also has some screenshots which you can follow. And just another point at the bottom there, that you'll also, in the meantime, get an email from Culture and Capability with your login details for ELMO, as a side note. So just, I think I did show this last week, but just for those who didn't see, this is just a snapshot of the ELMO homepage. So you're presented on that, on the right-hand side, there's the My Learning tab with just some example trainings that you could complete. There's also a point I want to make that in the training guide, we do state all the required courses that you will need to complete. I think there's 7 of those. Also, as you can see there, they do have a star symbol often, which will say required courses that you will need to complete. I think that's all. Do the next slide, please. Yep, so after that stage, we need you to enrol in the webinars required for your volunteer pathway. Sorry, I'm just noticing questions coming through. So just a point to answer there that ELMO and REDS are 2 separate systems, so they work independently. So they're both websites that you click onto. So just go back to the webinars. So we need all volunteers to complete their PFA skills webinar, but prior to this, you will need to complete the Introduction to Psychological First Aid prerequisite, and that's found on ELMO. So once you've completed that, go on to REDS and register for the PFA skills webinar, the dates that suit you. We are in the process currently going through EOIs, is another acronym for expression of interest. So when you express interest on REDS, we do filter through those on the Wednesday prior to that Friday event, but we are, just want to note that we are evaluating this process. So we do recognise that this is probably a bit short notice and that you need more time to manage for the future. So here's another snapshot of the REDS system. This is just an example of a homepage. So as you can see there to the right, there's a calendar which will state all the coded events that you can attend, and also there's all the different tabs. So that's just to have a little look. Next slide, please. Yeah, and so this is, I've just captured one of the PFA skills webinar events. So when you click on all events and go into the PFA webinars, this is the page that will come up. So we give a brief sort of blurb of what it's about, and also these event details, this template's similar for all webinar events. And so you also see the Zoom link on this page. And also that's where the press expression of interest. So you click that button, big red button there. And once we've looked over your expression of interest and we send a response, your name will appear in the attendees in people just above that event. So that's just some quick information. Now to go to IMT volunteers only. So you'll also need to complete the Introduction to AIMS webinar. So that's also been put onto REDS. And just a point there that IMT unit trainings are running throughout, but you'll receive that communication from your IMT lead. So get in touch if you need some more info about that. That's another point. And so they'll also provide more information on your next steps if you need to complete any other trainings. And okay, so for training dates, all volunteers were previously emailed a calendar with PFA and AIMS training dates. And on that, so just to give a bit of an outlook, so for November, we will be running trainings Thursday to Sunday, but for the rest of October, they are running on the Friday, and we do have another one coming up on the 31st as well on the Saturday. But just a point there that all these events will be eventually put onto REDS. So if you have a look on that system, they will come up and you'll be able to express interest. Just another point, I do recommend that you complete your AIMS training prior to the IMT exercise on the 7th of November. So that's just a date to keep in mind. And also just to point out to speak to your divisional operations officers and team leads if you have any questions to do with your learning and development. So I think that's all. I just want to say thanks for everyone for your patience during this period. We've all had to work through the challenges of online collaboration, and our team looks forward to meeting many of you throughout your learning and development journey at Red Cross, whether it be Zoom or hopefully face-to-face eventually. We have only touched the surface of all the trainings available at Red Cross here tonight, so keep an eye out for future possibilities as we pride ourselves on the continued personal and professional growth in all our volunteers. So thanks again, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Mia. And that brings us to a close of our last session of this Welcome Festival. It's been awesome to have all of you involved, whether you've attended just this one, maybe two, or all three of them. Thank you for coming along. We really hope your journey, this has really helped aid your journey, learning, meeting new people, and really seeing how you can make a difference with Red Cross. Don't forget, if you haven't, to join the Facebook group, the Vic Volunteer Facebook group. It's a great space to get communications, and you'll definitely be getting an email after this with YouTube links, next steps. And yeah, we're here to support you the whole way, so never fret to reach out. And thank you so much. And we really are just so stoked to have everyone on board. So have a fantastic night, and we'll speak soon.
Well done, Shannon.
Cheers,
Thanks.
Damo. Thank you. Great tour.
No worries. Thanks, bud. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, it was great.
Bye, everyone.
Speak to you soon.
See you all.
See you later. Thanks, everybody.